So tell us about the embryo situation, because this is something I've never heard about before.
Sure. So we had 6 remaining embryos. We had, during the process of the divorce, we had finally reached an agreement where the 6 frozen embryos would be given to a Christian adoption agency out of California called the Snowflake Foundation.
Okay.
This is not, these are Christian people. These are people with great family structures. Mm-hmm. These are people with great resources. Mm-hmm. In a situation like this, if it has to be, this is as optimal as it gets for the child.
Right. So it's interesting because you've said embryo, but now you're saying child.
Yes. Well,
so tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the scientific term is embryo, but at the same time, it depends upon what you believe. I believe, as a Christian, that life begins at conception.
Right.
So when the male and the female cells come together, this is what we call conception.
Right. Right.
Right? And then there's a moment that I call the majestic moment.
Yeah.
When God gives this conception permission to become a human on the planet.
Yes.
And what happens at that moment is those cells start to divide.
Right. So basically all of this humanity that you're talking about is taking place inside the womb. So I guess what you're also saying at the same time, then, it's a personhood begins inside the womb, as opposed to just outside of once the child is born.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And one thing I tell people is that all children, there's no such thing as an unborn child. Mm-hmm. It's like an unfinished child. Mm-hmm. They're all preborn children.
Yes. Yeah.
Life starts at cell division.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, as it moves forward, it'll go through a transition between in the womb to in the environment that we live today.
Right, right.
But the life from the first cell division continues.
Right.
And one of the things I think people, if they could only appreciate it, is that from this first cell division where there are 2 cells,
right,
this will continue on until people like you and me, as we sit here and talk,
right,
we will end up being 38 trillion and 7 billion cells all working together.
Wow.
To be who we are today.
That is an amazing story about the creation of a person.
This is what I call God's math.
Right.
You know?
Right.
How does 2 equal 38 trillion and 7 billion more? Well, us humans, but
yep.
God can do that kind of math and does that math, which leads to what we're doing right now.
Right, right.
Yes.
So tell us, and I'm sorry for taking you off track there just a little bit.
It's quite all right.
But I want to know more about the Embryo Wars.
Sure.
And I think it's going to be very interesting to hear this discussion.
Okay. So, as I mentioned previously, we were finally at a stage of the divorce after 2.5 years where all matters were settled except for the disposition of the 6 remaining human embryos. Mm-hmm. We had finally reached an agreement on that, in that they would be given to the Snowflake Foundation. Mm-hmm. We would seal our divorce record. The only people that would know about it would be my former spouse, myself, representation, and God. Mm-hmm. And that we were just going to allow them to live. Mm-hmm. The night before the hearing to finalize the divorce on all matters, I get a call from my divorce attorney. Dan tells me, "Hey, Darrell, Laura's changed her mind. She doesn't want to give the embryos to the Snowflake Foundation because she's afraid that sometime later on, when they are born and become human, they will seek out their parents and find out that they have a brother." And I said, "Dan, we've already agreed to it. We've already got it in writing." He said, they changed their mind at the 9th hour, and they're refusing to do it, so we have to go to the hearing tomorrow. We go to the hearing the next day, and as we're setting down to get ready to have the hearing, my attorney goes to the judge's chambers to tell him we're ready. Then my attorney comes back and says, Darrell, Judge Lowe wants to talk to you. I said, what about? He says, I don't know. So we walk into this ancient judge's chamber with this gentleman who's in polyester and hadn't polished his shoes since 1972. And I sit down in this rickety chair across his desk, and he looks at me and he says, Dr. Angle, this is a very intense matter. And although I haven't heard the evidence, I intend to rule against you.
Wow.
So he's trying to strong-arm me into settling.
Wow.
The judge is. He hasn't heard the evidence, but he's wanting to make this thing go away.
Do you want to mention the judge's name, or is that something?
Judge John Lowe.
Judge, okay.
John Lowe in Clackamas County, Oregon.
Okay. I used to live in Portland, so I'm familiar with the area. Go ahead.
So I looked at him and I said, I realize this is a heart-wrenching matter, but I will not ever agree to what you're wanting me to do. He says, I believe you're making a mistake. I said, that's fine.
Yeah.
I said, let's go to hearing. So we go, he gets in his robe, we go out to the courtroom, everybody's sworn in. My former spouse gets up and says, I want these embryos destroyed because I don't want our son to ever know that he has a possible brother or sister. I get up, raise my hand, give my testimony. I say, I will not, under any circumstances, participate to the demise of my children.
Right.
I won't do it.
Right.
The judge, after hearing both sides, sits there and he gets ready to state his ruling. And it looks like he's having an emphysema attack. He can't breathe, his face is red, and he finally says, I rule that the embryos be given up for scientific research.
Wow. So basically the judge basically gets to determine, well, this happens all the time. Judges determine the outcome of children. They have no relationship with them, nothing, no knowledge of them.
Correct.
And just like in an abortion, when you have no choice over whether your child's life can be saved, because they always defer to the mother.
Right.
The judge basically was decreeing the destruction of your children.
Right. So, after that was done, I just sat there stunned, and it took me a long time to even stand up. I was just so overwhelmed by the situation. A couple of days later, my attorney and I got back together, and he referred me to the top appellate attorney in the state of Oregon. We started the appeal, so we took the case out of the circuit court, moved it up to the Oregon Court of Appeals. It was heard in front of 3 judges. They asked very insightful questions, so it appeared. And when we walked out, my appellate judge, a man named Mark Johnson, said, we got this thing. It took 9 months to get the opinion back from the appellate court. And the appellate court said that based upon this storage agreement that was only good for 1 year, it would be given to my former spouse. They didn't even take into consideration. In fact, one of the appellate judges, a lady named Ellen Rosenblum, who's now the Attorney General in Oregon, said, the storage agreement is only valid for 1 year, but we're three years down the road. Who's got the storage agreement? And my attorney said, Dr. Angle has the storage agreement. So even though they knew that I had the valid storage agreement, they ruled against it. What I learned, one of the biggest takeaways I've learned from this whole situation is that the legal system has zero understanding of human life from conception. They don't understand it. They just look at their little case law books, and if there's nothing that applies, they just make it up.
Yeah.
You know?
So in other words, you have no confidence in the judiciary.
Zero.
Zero.
I have no confidence because the evidence that's been presented in front of me by my life's experience shows that there's no reason to have confidence.
Yeah. And that's what we found too. We've talked many times about it's so bad that at this point in time, we who want to believe in the integrity of the judiciary can no longer believe in the integrity of the third branch of government.
Right.
And I'm not talking about the other two as having a lot of trust in either.
Agreed.
But we have no integrity or no ability to trust them because of what they have done.
Right.
And Darrell, I'm sorry, we're really short on time right now.
It's okay.
So I'd love to just, if people want to get your book, can you tell them just a little bit about your book and where they can get it?
Absolutely. So my book is called Embryo Wars, One Man's Fight to Give His Children Life. It's just been published 2 weeks ago, and it can be found at our website, which is called embryoprotectionsociety.org. I have written this book based upon the chronicling of the experiences in the book. All the profits are going to the nonprofit so that we can continue the good fight to protect preborn human life. Again, the website to purchase the book is called the embryoprotectionsociety.org. You can also contact me if you'd like to be another willing warrior to protect preborn human lives.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I can imagine that we've just touched the tip of the iceberg, the emotional part we didn't get into and all the other struggles.
Right.
But I want to thank you for sharing with us here. And I hope that many people will buy this book. Thank you, by the way. I got an autographed copy, and I can assure you I'll be reading it, and we do stand for life. Thank you so very much.
It's been an honor to be with you. We look forward to fighting the good fight for all the children.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Darrell. Thank you.
God bless.